Hello guys, Deborah here. I'm back. Today's video is going to be informative, I hope, probably interesting for you. You may or may not have heard of the topic for today's video, and that is the Super Empath. I have been away from the narcissistic abuse community for a while. I used to have a channel that I deleted. You guys may have remembered it. Niches of Narcissism. I'm starting over with more of a focus on spiritual warfare in the end times, and that does include a lot of topics on cluster B personality disorder, because many times the enemy will use in spiritual warfare, I would like to say most of the time, but there are a lot of personal struggles and battles that are just very individual, but a lot of the time, if not most of the time, the enemy will use other people. And a lot of times these days you're dealing with people who are stuck at certain ages and development levels, maturity levels, and personality disordered. They're having major issues themselves, and this can be a blind spot for us. So a lot of what I try to do, what I've always tried to do, is enlighten people and make them more aware of what you're actually dealing with. Not to be hateful, but mostly to know how to just how to be careful, how to protect the vulnerable, and how to pray for others. Just one more blind side that the enemy cannot have on us, which is another reason why the enemy hates me and wants to attack me, because I won't stop no matter what, even after the recent attacks that I've had. Thank you, Jesus. So I'm back into the community, looking around as usual. It's the thing that I love, I'm fascinated with, and very encouraging, motivational for myself. And I just love to see the warm side of the community that's run by the empaths, and what I'm learning, a lot of super empaths here, I believe. And I'll get into that. But I do appreciate the structure, the true love, if you will. Not the wild, crazy, quick, rash lust, but the true, deep, depth, love, richness, joy, peace, hope, charity, in the communities of sharing and caring about fellow mankind, selflessness, connection, and something that's very productive and peaceful and godly, because a lot of these channels are now showing people the true life, the true light, and showing people the only way, the only reason these things happen, and the only way out of them, the only answer is Jesus Christ. The true spirituality, the way, the truth, and the life. Amen. The light of the world is Jesus. And of course people like to say, well, that's just kind of narrow, and narrow is a good word to use, because I absolutely believe the absolute truthful words of God, that narrow is the pathway to life and broad is the way to destruction. Many people will be on the way to destruction, sadly. Most people, I take that to mean most people are on the way to destruction. And few people even find the narrow way to life. So I don't mind people saying narrow. I'm like, okay, good. Maybe that's a good indicator, along with my private indicators between myself and God, that I am on the proper narrow path to life. I don't mind being called that. But today, once more, educational, informative. So this will be in the category of spiritual information. You could say the Advanced Training Academy that I have here online for free. I'm not going to call this one a master class because it's very brief, but just an interesting factoid you guys may have run into. When I was going through the narcissistic abuse information before, I would say about a year ago, more heavily, I did not hear of some of the ideas that are out there now. It's interesting how different the community is now. It's not super different, but there are differences. So a few of the differences that I've seen is there's more people, like I said, with correct spirituality, using the opportunity to lead people into Jesus Christ, more people who are faith-based. It seems like, at least at the part that I'm looking at, more faith-based people that are out there creating channels. And mostly I'm talking about YouTube channels. I'm not talking about blogs or anything, just YouTube channels. There is more of an emphasis on how to defeat the narcissist and how the narcissist is losing. Whereas before it was more like, this is why they're so undefeatable, and how they won and here's how they won. Now there's a whole lot, maybe because it's a little bit clickbaitish, I don't know, but I think there's a lot of truth in it. And I've covered this before on my past channel. I just didn't make it quite as much clickbait, but I did focus a lot on the narcissist is not the winner, and I used a lot of Bible, obviously, biblical spiritual truths to show this, but you have a lot of people saying, this is how the narcissist, they just kick themselves, and this is how they are kicking themselves, and they're down, and they're miserable and upset and depressed without you in real life, even though they're faking it. And that's interesting. And there's also more information in general, and I'm not trying to give H.G. Tudor a lot of credit because he calls himself this narcissist, which I would say just be very careful of his spiritual influence, and definitely his language is off base. But I have paid attention to his books before, way in the past, years ago, and they did help me, because what that did whenever I took H.G. Tudor's books, I read them, some of them, is it showed me, because I was kind of in the mode of, where's the justice here? And that showed me that I had already gotten a lot of justice. I just didn't recognize it because I'm not coming from the narcissistic viewpoint. And so that's kind of like my little journey with his books. But apparently he just kind of, how we binge watch, well, he apparently binge creates videos from what I've seen. And they're loaded with a lot of technical information of his viewpoint. And I would say, some of it is probably very informative. And another thing I do, guys, when I watch these videos like this for information, is I'll put the speed up high, like on 1.5 or higher. That way I can listen to it quickly. Since I'm not listening to it for the ambiance or the background, like I may do for other more empathic videos, when I'm just listening to videos for information, I just put the speed up high, and I try not to be as distracted, so I can just listen to it very quickly and catch the information and move on quickly. So H.G. Tudor channel does have some information, some interesting theories that are probably not found in diagnostic manuals, statistical diagnostic manuals for psychology. But, for example, he has ideas on 4 different types of empaths, and I just wonder how old he is and how long has he been playing this game, which is very destructive on him. That's the sad part. But to finally get into my topic, I did want to cover what is being discussed as the super empath, or the narcissist kryptonite, as I will call it here. What a lot of people are discovering and calling the super empath. Maybe a goal for some people to try to heal to this level, or to recognize if this is more like what they are, if they're confused about what category they belong in, because they're pretty sure they're not a codependent. That never quite makes sense to them, but they do get tangled up with narcissists and abused just like an empath. Or if you've seen this before, what you might be looking at, a confusion here, and if you are this way or lean toward this way, how you can use it to your advantage maybe. And I see a lot of people saying be careful not to harm the narcissist. There's a few different levels of wisdom on that. You shouldn't be deliberately harming the narcissist, as far as you don't want to be putting yourself and any innocent people around you in undue danger, because these people are way more dangerous than we could even imagine. A lot of times it seems like once we think we have a grip on defining these people, we think they're kind of controlled, because in our logical view of the world, in our sane, civilized view of the world, when things are well defined, they're a lot more like controllable and controlled and understandable, and you can know how to react to them well. But these people, even when you have them into their proper category and you know a lot about them, that does not mean that they're safe at all. And we will forget that because we're trying to come from like a civilized and a non-barbaric viewpoint. So these people, no matter how much you may understand them, about them, what category, what niche of a category they go into, they're not safe. You just have to get away and pray. It's not safe at all. It's not manageable. I'm sure you guys already have figured that out, a lot of you. So the categories, the subcategories, the detailed categories. And we were talking about not deliberately hurting the narcissist because they're a dangerous person, and also because some people are talking about the super empath, how they can just absolutely destroy a narcissist, and they're talking about doing it as though you're one-on-one on person with these people alone, which is super dangerous, super, very, very dangerous. And just trying to casually commit your life with them is extremely dangerous, much less doing something like that. But also, some of these people are not even aware of why they're that way and how they're that way. They're not aware of things like how childhood vicious damage and abuse from a very early age, and what other people did to them from this age forward, forcing them into lives and lifestyles a lot of times. Plus, you're talking about decades of wrong choices, decades of evil choices, decades of molding, shaping, waxing a person, which is growing and growing a person into evil and darkness and despair. And so really these are people that we need to not be feeling vindictive toward as much as possible. Like, there is a time and a place for their evil to be shut down and taken care of, I agree, but it's not something like we need to make sure that we're the punisher. That's not really even our place for a lot of different reasons. Very broken, very hurt people that the danger is seeing how broken and hurt they are, because your empath and your super empath wants to go and save them, help them, love them. It's so hard these days when it's hard to see a lot of healthiness anywhere, and you do want to invest, and you may feel like, well, maybe God doesn't mind us sacrificing a little bit, right, to invest and be with this person at some level and help them. And that's why it takes a lot of different videos from a lot of different teachers to kind of give us more the overall wisdom of why it's the absolute best to stay as far away from destructive people as you can, once you've assessed that they're at a certain level of evil, that what you're dealing with. Also, I would suggest just start reading through the book of Proverbs or something, a very wise book of the Bible, even the Psalms, and just highlight the wisdom, highlight the instruction there, take notes about the instruction. That'll also give you a very good indicator of how far you need to stay away from people that are, some people you can't avoid. You're going to be around them. They're going to be in your family or in your church or your workplace, or maybe even your children, and you don't believe in maybe completely cutting them off. But as far as like lifelong commitments to try and build and grow with people who, the spirit behind them, the black sucking vortex of death that's pulling them down into a death spiral, is determined to take everyone else down with it. So I plan to to continue uploading some of my older videos that are also filled with this kind of teaching to hopefully be helpful. So the super empath, I've been very fascinated by this new information that I'm learning. Taking some time away, and I feel like I'm coming back. I've debated on whether or not to grow this channel or not. It just depends on, God has me doing so many productive projects right now that I'm not sure how much time I will dedicate to this channel. What will be a shortcut for time for me on here is uploading a lot of my older videos, or I did a lot of my older videos in stages, like parts 1 through 10, and I'm probably just going to put it all together into very long videos, like 30 minutes to even few hours. So there will be like a class for the academy for spiritual warfare and informational purposes, psychological warfare. And so I will have a lot of content on this channel again. I plan to for now. I'm also starting at least on my second book. I have so much information, guys, that can be made into books. So I'm trying to figure out whether to do a large handbook for training on the combat that we find ourselves in with this, or if I should break it out into a few smaller books that's maybe more digestible and more focused. But so I could say, pretty much back, but I just have a lot of productive projects, so not sure how much time and effort I'll be able to spend on it. But I'm very motivated and very grateful to be back. This is like something that kind of lights me up. I feel like it's just something that I should be doing. I enjoy being part of the community. I celebrate when I see others doing the same thing I do and doing it better even. So I feel like I'm back because I have been through a recent time of spiritual warfare that was brought on by a psychopath, and I believe that some of this understanding of the super empath will explain that. So I feel like I'm back even stronger than I ever was before, with more information and more experience. I've overcome even more evil and abuse, and now I know even more about the spiritual side of growing into the glory of God. And of course, this is all very important for the end times. I believe a lot of us and a lot of the, very close children of God are going to grow more and more in this way. That we're going to, as I've said on other past videos, that we're going to seem to lose a lot in the end times through persecution, through trial and difficulty. That should be one of the main things that in our warfare we are preparing for. The two things that I always keep in mind with that is that we're going to lose a lot. We need to remember as we're losing a lot not to panic, not to have the wrong reaction, not to lose faith or trust, not to become angry and vindictive, but to remember what our training has showed us, that it's okay, that God is going to still be there for everything we need, right, to fulfill everything that we need to fulfill for Him on this earth right until the very end. And not only is it okay, whatever we're going through, but it's probably like, whenever you're dedicating your entire life to God the best you know how, this path that you're on is going to be like essential, perfect. Like they say, things don't happen to us, they happen for us. And Romans 8:28, of all things will work together for our ultimate good, that we need to keep these principles in mind, that we're on the best path that our Father has for us for now. He's going to use everything. I'm a strong believer that a lot of the evil things could be avoided and should be avoided, but not to cry over spilt milk, and to know that God is going to turn even whatever the worst that happens to us even into a greater glory for us. The glory of the eternal, that we will get glimpses of on this side of eternity, probably stronger and stronger as we go into the deep prophetic. Once more, I would suggest everyone to really be studying the book of Revelations. Play it out loud in your room. Guys, I have discovered that the book of Revelation, I said Revelations, but it's Revelation, at the end of the Bible, is the most anti-narcissist book that there is. And it's the book that you're going to get the biggest spiritual blessing from. It's the book that we absolutely need for where we're going, because it's going to give us the nourishment that we need, the information and instructions that we need for where we're going in the end times to be right with God, the best, the closest with God. It's very anti-narcissist. It's absolutely jam-packed, filled with truth and wonder and glory. And, this is the correct training that we're absolutely going to need. Like I've been saying, whenever these things happen to us, it's okay, and it's the revelation of Jesus, and time is so short. God's going to redeem everything, and, not to feel like we're just losing, because we're actually gaining, and we're actually with Christ. And Revelation is the most anti-narcissist book that I have ever heard of, because a lot of people have the reaction to it that it's too scary, right? It's too scary, it's too much, it's too deep, it's too heavy, it's too spiritual, and that is exactly why it's the anti-narcissist book, among many other things that it is. And there's instruction in there very quickly when you start reading that you will gain the blessing from studying and obeying the book. It is your most anti-narcissistic book because it's going to take the focus off of you, which is exactly what fear does, the proper fear. The healthy, proper fear of God, the eternal truths, and hellfire, judgment, those truth and realities, when you grasp them properly, when you don't panic and run away from them, when you don't throw up your hands and give up, when you don't feel condemned, you shouldn't feel condemned or shamed. You should feel like mercy of God's giving you a chance to, all of us have places that we need to be repenting and changing and growing with God. So whenever you have the proper reaction to this fear of God, that is your most anti-narcissist antidote to narcissism, is the proper fears toward God and the things that the relationship that God has with us. So I would say Revelation is great. If you feel like it's a overwhelming book, get lost in it. Train yourself, train your mind to get lost of focusing not on the ways you think and not on the ways you believe, but in the ways that God is showing that is bigger than us, and that's okay. These things are bigger than us, and that's okay. We have a God that we can trust through it. He's going to be our only way through the things that are coming and through the things that are bigger than us. Having those realities that are bigger than self. Having those realities that are bigger than self, and Jesus being the only answer. That's anti-narcissism in a nutshell. So, great, wonderful book that, I was listening the other day and my jaw was dropping on the floor. So I believe one of the things through the extreme torture that I have been put through of abuse is I'm getting a lot of spiritual growth. And I'm not even bragging, because I'm just sitting here saying that I have only just begun. But I still love to share whatever I have and try to help others always. So that's where I have been lately, with overcoming evil and abuse and the glory of God through it, and what's ahead, I believe. Like I said, this new definition that I've recently learned is called, what people are calling, the Super Empath, and I'm going to get into that, what that is. It describes, I believe, that people, it describes us very well, the ones of us that are often found running the channels and the blogs, to share what we've learned and try to get the most good out of the evil that we've witnessed. Sometimes the Super Empath is called the Narc Destroyer, the Narcissist Destroyer. Other names are Hayoka Empath, or a wise empath, and Hayoka comes from a native word of a clown or a jester, or someone who will hold up a mirror to the face of the one to show them their needs, their flaws, if you will, their areas of improvement, their blind spots. Someone who seems a little bit backward than what you would expect. So maybe they're an empath, but they're a little bit different than you would expect. And so this Super Empath is not just filled with empathy, but they're more like on your higher end spectrum with, of course, people having gifts and talents. Like I say, we're often the ones leading in the community. It seems like that's one of the places I believe I'm seeing them. Gifts and talents, strong passion to teach, share, help, in all areas, not just about narcissism, because they love to give and grow, and it just, they can tell how much good it does and get addicted to that, if you will. As an empath, we have experiences being abused by narcissists and bullies and witches and the like, and the desire to engage in the battle of good versus evil, because we thoroughly understand the importance of that, the value in that. More on the empathic side and the high energy side, the more empathic types will not be as, what I call, drunk and enslaved through the fantasy and addiction process, and therefore the codependent process. So we have a lot more excess time and energy, which also makes us a very good leader, and desires to build into community and with others. And the more you practice these things in life, guys, the better you get. So a lot of times I believe you see the leaders in their 40s and 50s even, because they have really built into this and they're stronger in it, and they have a lot more talents and abilities. That's just a theory that I believe I've seen. Not being codependent, they have the strong boundaries, and they don't just allow anyone to run over them, and it takes like a higher range narcissist or a psychopath to get them, if they ever do. And that's what happened to me recently. I was untouchable by a psychopath who was targeting me for years. I was absolutely untouchable, and then God started blessing me on this level to where the psychopath was very angry and tried to literally kill me for about a year, and then he just went on ahead and worshipped Satan in order to spiritually attack me. And that's what finally worked, if you'll call it that, but that's what it took. He had to do like the perfect crime, and he had to sell his soul to do it, because I can't prove it, of course. And then when you talk about it, a lot of people will think that you're either being psychotic or making it up or losing your mind. But that's okay, because God has given me so much rich, perfect peace that everything's going to be set just fine with this. I'm going to keep working, keep sharing, keep loving, keep being passionate and compassionate. And this person has slipped off into a level of darkness that I can't even understand, and I'm not going to even go there or try, because I saw the person choose to do this in order to kill me. I saw how it almost killed me, so I'm just giving that over to God. That belongs in God's camp, and I deserve to walk away into the glorious eternity that God has given me. Thank you, Jesus. So, it takes the higher range narcissist or psychopath to either capture a super empath or to punish them, or whatever you want to call it, in any way, most times. And there was an attempt recently with me, but that has failed. And there may be continued attempts because they keep failing. We shall see. So some more interesting super empath factoids. Sometimes they're called the narcissist or the narcissist nightmare, because of these strong urges to resist the narcissistic abuse. And just like H.G. Tudor calls his end of the spectrum the ultra narcissist, then I will say that these people, the super empaths, could be called like the alpha, the apex, or the ultra of the empathic spectrum. They're more like the elite, you could say, are the ones that are very gifted. And there's a lot of different descriptions of this theory. I believe that would also be on a spectrum. And it's kind of a newer idea, I think. I think there's a book I saw that's a few years old about the super empath, but it's a newer theory it seems like people are discussing. But I can see where it's something that needs to be discussed because I have seen it, and I believe it is happening. So, like I said, I believe I see this type stepping up to take leadership in our recovery community and in the understanding of the psychological warfare. And that's kind of to the theory of to whom much is given, much is required. Because a lot of times when people are given a lot, they even actually have the drive, the urge, and the passion to give a lot. Even people who are not, you could say, saved and with the Lord will even have this because it's just one of the natural laws and desires a lot of times. So I see both men and women in this category. The male example that I believe I see right now would be the YouTube channel Narcology Unscripted with Dave. There's a few female examples, and the best one out there I believe I'm seeing right now is the T on NPD and relationships. I think her name is Telsha or Taisha. I haven't figured that out, but she's really good too, and she's definitely super empathic. I would say more than myself even. So, the super empath will often balk and fight back strongly at the first signs of devaluation. And this is something that I have always had, and people in my family are this way too, when we can tell, we can just smell it a lot of times when we're being manipulated, especially in certain ways. And I always remember this occasion that happened when I was in my early 20s, and you could say not as educated about the world, and someone was trying to get me in on, you could say, a multi-level scam. And I had already spent like $50 for a kit to learn about it, and they were trying to scheme me in on multiple hundreds of dollars to get higher into the scam, right? And I just had too many questions. And I literally, that was back in the day before cell phones, whenever I was on the wall phone, running up the phone bill, talking to this person for 2 or 3 hours and utterly frustrating this salesman, completely frustrating them because I had too many questions and it wasn't ever making sense. It's just an example of a super empath, and I do give a lot of credit to anyone on any of these codependent, empathic, or narcissistic spectrums. You have to pay attention to their intelligence level, how they use it, and how they've historically used it. That's going to be huge, and how they've been taught to use their intelligence. That's going to give you a lot of information on their capabilities for good or evil. So the super empath will fight back strongly at the first signs of devaluation, and rather than become confused or excuse away devalue or just not see it, they'll say, oh, well, the reason the abuser did that was they were having a bad day, or who wouldn't do that, or since they were raised this way, that's why they did it. But the super empath is more likely to say that's not acceptable because I can see where that leads very quickly, very strongly, and that's not going to be okay with me. That's not where I'm going. So you'll see the super empath person, they will be able to leave and actually discard the narcissist, or the weaker level narcissist especially, and find more creative ways to avoid being devalued for much, much longer, even if they do stay. So when they do hang around and try to make things work, it's usually going to be to their high empath of love and trying to heal and fix the double and broken wing bird narcissist, because they see the broken child, they love the broken child, they feel so bad for what happened to this person in their childhood, they can see it and they just feel it, the motherhood instincts and all of this of nurturing, and it hurts them to see the person hurt. They don't want to just walk away and leave them in that shape. And they also have a lot of information and wisdom and insight and comfort and energy that they can offer in the healing process for anyone in their life, much less someone so broken and hurt. And this person is not going to need the constant validation and approval that the codependent will need from others. Usually, they won't need that. And they're not going to be as prone to fear, obligation, and guilt complexes and processes as the codependent. And they will not allow or make excuses for abusers as quickly. And they're going to be a lot more deeper in their heart, though, like I was saying, than just like your regular empath. They have more going on there, I believe. And once more, I suspect that would be due to higher intelligence, which is often just a higher sensitivity over time with experience and study. When you look at someone who's spent a few decades that have diligently, very carefully, painstakingly, not been drunk, not been in fantasy, not been wasteful, but has spent all this time very carefully, very studiously learning and growing, you can do a whole lot with a person in that time, with most anyone, actually. Just something to keep in mind. Something about the super empath will be stronger, guys. Many things probably about them will be stronger. They're not going to be looking outside of themselves constantly for, at least not to other people, for their senses of identity, purpose, and goals and destiny. They're going to have an excitement within themselves, between like them and God, or them and their ideas of community, them and their ideas of family, but it's going to be coming more from themselves and independent of a significant other, especially someone that they deem an abusive significant other, for their identity, purpose, goals, and destiny. They're going to be more intelligent and recognize that if I put my needs, because they may have strong validation and approval needs, but if they're realizing, hey, you know what, if I put all of my needs for this on someone who's destructive, on someone who's not intelligent, on someone who doesn't really like me, on someone who's looking for reasons to put me down, on someone who makes the kind of decisions I would never make, then I'm never going to be respectful for anyone. I'm never going to have any validation or approval from anyone anyway. So you're going to lose what you're seeking for anyway. I'm never going to feel whole, rich, strong, success. It's like they can feel the destruction coming. They see the warning signs way ahead, almost. Combined with probably other factors there. And so they have these senses of their own identity that they're not going to easily allow anyone to come in and define or redefine as strongly. And so they're psychologically stronger against these personal weaknesses like doubting themselves, addiction, fantasy. And a narcissist will fully take advantage of these kind of areas, but they're going to be a little bit stronger there. So when the abuser starts drawing them into addictions or fantasies, like a physical relationship or the love bombing, then the super empath will find themselves more resourceful to break away from it easier. It's not that they won't necessarily get caught up into it, as much as they will find that they'll break away easier because they have other things going on. They can see, they have like a desire to get out, and they can see more. And they probably saw it coming all along, right? Once you're fighting something that you can already see, even if you're getting pulled in, the sooner you start actually fighting it, the better of a chance you have. That's the theory I have. So you're not going to find someone like a super empath being driving themselves to a point of collapse for an abuser with no reserve. And they're not going to sit there and beat themselves up endlessly and blame themselves and blame themselves and blame themselves for things that they're being accused of by others. They're not as easily gaslighted, persuaded, or shifted. There's probably a lot of reasons for that, by either false accusations or the viewpoints of other people. And this is where I think it would just be, I would frustrate a narcissist to death. If not, they would just have to choke me out. Kind of like this psychopath recently tried to do. That they cannot win over me. That I've never found one that could win over me. Even in my 20s, I would meet these people, and it happened to be men just because I am very heterosexual. But I would meet these men who just knew that they owned me. And I knew people in my 20s too, that other women that had the same problem. And back then I didn't really know about narcissists, but it was just like, this is bizarre. We would have conversations about what makes these people think they own us. They think they're going to take us out on a date. They just know that they're going to sleep with us and we have no say. Where does that come from? And so I think, of course, we were dealing with something like this, cluster B. But I would be able to tell these people immediately and kick them to the curb immediately and not even have anything to do with them or talk to them at all. And I didn't know anything about narcissism. But that's just the way I've always been. It's like, loser, no indeed. And I'm not just going to be immediately attracted to someone. That's going to take me a little while, and it's always been about the inside more than the outside and taking a while. And so maybe it's factors like that go into people not being as codependent or victimized. I don't know. And I'm not saying that it's I'm arrogant about it as much as it's just natural for me. And as I've said, the super empaths have seemingly developed highly sophisticated bullcrap detectors, radars, sniffers, deflectors, and deterrents. Isn't that the truth? And I'm not perfect at it, but I do just to where I can pretty quickly say, no, that's right. And some people in my family do this stronger than I do, and it's very impressive. They impress me. They just have like a very low tolerance for any sort of manipulation, including media and entertainment. Now, where I'm at on media and entertainment is that hopefully I can share a lot of those videos with you guys again, but on my old channel I was constantly warning about, and in my book, about how those are these world systems from the dark forces that are designed to trick the masses into damnation, because the media entertainment that's out there these days is intended to weaken you in one way or the other, to promise you lies, and to manipulate you and control you. And so once I was shown to just cut all that completely out of my life and how poisonous it all was, it was easy for me to do. No, I don't like to have any worldly entertainment or music in my life at all whatsoever. And as soon as it starts coming into my life, I'm immediately weakened, and I can feel that, and I don't like it. Some of it just makes me cringe to the bone. Some of it, I can smell Satan when it starts playing. I can just, in my mind, I can see millions of people falling into hell. So yes, I have a very strong bull detector, and things that go with it. So there's probably a lot of these different factors that make people into this, you could say, super empath. Some people say they're basically narcissistic traits, but they're very empathic. They're the narcissist with empathy, you know. I'm not sure how far that goes either, as much as I would say, I have joked about myself that I'm too narcissistic to be abused by a narcissist, because I have very strong boundaries. And I can tell when they start pushing those boundaries down. Even somebody that I'm in love with and I feel for and I want to help and love and give and give and give and give and give to, and I have empathy toward, and I would give of myself greatly to help them. Once they start coming past my boundaries, it's over, because that's wickedness. That's a certain level of destruction, and I can completely feel it. So it's a very much stronger mix here that's going on, like with that would not be like a codependent at all. So the super empath is somehow able to easier see through pity stories and victim roles of the abuser. I'm not good on this part as much. I still will quickly buy the pity story, because most of the time it doesn't look like a pity story. And guys, the warning here is that a lot of people have a pity story. A lot of people have a pity story that's true, because we've all been through terrible things. But what helps me here is to realize that they react differently with their pity story than I do. I try to put my pity story way in the past. I try to have 15,000 ways that I've overcome it as quickly as possible. I try not to put it off on anyone else as much as possible. The only reason I will tell you a pity story is to learn from it. We can all learn from it. We can all grow stronger from it. And we can kind of laugh at how we overcame it and how much better it is than how it used to be. But as far as sitting there making someone do something for me constantly all the time because of the stories, and me just automatically taking the role of I don't think I'm ever going to get over it, that's not acceptable. Things like that. But I still don't see through other people's pity stories, because I just take them at heart level of, well, this is just what they've been through, and maybe sometimes it is. And I do feel for them when they tell their stories. But I have to be stronger in this area of seeing where they're using it too much and where they're not stepping up where they could. And especially older, mature people that should be, community leaders, and victim, being the constant victim always, or feeling like it. And some of these people have a psychological weakness where they can't pull up out of it and snap their fingers and make it better again. But that's still one of what I call the black hole of the spiral of death that we don't deserve to get sucked into. We have to be so careful that the good that we have to offer does not get sucked into anybody else's black hole, even if they can't help it. Even if God bless them and God help them, they can't help it. The best we can do is surrender that to God, pray for them, and walk away. Because I'm such a strong believer in that. In the overall picture, to help everyone. But the super empath is more likely to not be as victimized by other people's pity stories and victim roles. And they notice that the abuser has a lot of empathy. All these people that are not empathic, they have tons of empathy for themselves all of a sudden, but not for other people. And they brag about being harsh and cruel and wicked and violent, to other people who are just clowns and losers. But it's so carefully crafted and hidden with how sweet and pitiful they are. And it's just like, no, no. The only thing that an abuser can use in those lies is to get us caught up in this story that of the love bombing, the romance, or the trauma bond or something. But we're more likely that we will struggle with cognitive dissonance also, but we will wait. We can see enough that we're going to step back and wait and watch and pray and learn and take notes and consistently school ourselves over and over and over again with the truth and ask for God's help and things like that until we get the victory, because it's just different for the super empath. We're not going to just go in with our blind heart and cover our eyes. We can see that these victims are not quite the victim they're saying they are. We can see plot holes of the storyline, and we can even see how some of the narcissists believe their own lies, because some of them know they're lying and some of them don't even know they're lying. So our super empathy may kick in, and it may lead us to try to fix this blinded or broken person rather than be frustrated with them. The super empath is not going to get us frustrated. We're very good teachers, very good empathizers, to really work and work and work and work and try to help someone. And I believe there's a role for that, like with special needs children and things like that, but not with significant others who are leading us into sinful lifestyles and bringing children into the situation. That's where it gets really destructive. The super empath seems to always be a very strong giver from a reality-based position, more of a reality-based position, which is relative strength and power. And when they give, they don't just give out. They know where the end of their resources are, and they are more careful about their resources out of wisdom. And they're not just going to give and give and give and give like a codependent until they collapse and have nothing left and end up in jail and end up on Skid Row and end up losing their entire life and ending, I don't want to say that, but you guys know what I'm talking about. And the super empath is also going to be a lot more careful in rationing their resources, and they're going to give them in places that are better to give them and not where they're going to be wasted. They're going to offer resources where they're more well-deserved and most needed and appreciated. So the narcissist must use a lot more of their resources to secure a super empath than a regular empath. But there's things about a super empath that are kind of shiny and rich fuel, high fuel. So the theory there is that only the greater narcissistic and the psychopathic type people are willing to put forth this kind of an energy, because once they can get in with a super empath, then they're going to get a much, much greater reward and a lot longer of a fuel supply, supposedly, that's worth the effort. Plus, they can get their bragging rights because they can enjoy seducing and then breaking a super empath to prove a special level of dominance and, bragging trophy rights, you could say. I don't really understand that kind of darkness, but I do kind of understand if they think they're getting a reward from something, that they're willing to wait and be more calculating or something, if they think it's more rewarding. Because I think a lot of times the abuser they're fooled by the darkness too of what they're even doing. So what you'll find there is your lower level abusers may discard the super empath pretty quick once they realize that they've met somebody that's not the usual run of the mill. They're looking for easy, fast fuel, especially when they are looking for backup supplies. And once they see that their effort to devalue this person and degrade them and control them and gaslight them is not going to work, they're like, this is not what I was looking for, and they'll be gone. They may not understand the process, but they'll dump them quicker. And actually, the super empath may be more likely to discard the narcissist themselves rather than to tolerate this intense level of abuse, because it takes this whole lot of breaking down and devaluing to start really devaluing a super empath. So they may discard any narcissist and be done with that. And being so filled with supply like they are, and richness and health and growth and intelligence, they may rather be alone. They may just be like, I can supply myself, or I can get my supply from other places, from spirituality or something, not this wicked person. So that's another thing I've noticed more people doing on these channels, is choosing to be by themselves, and that's just a sign of the times. I'm not saying that's the best thing as much as a sign of the times. If the super empath is financially and otherwise able to leave, they're more likely to discard. And another thing they may do, though, is hang around much, 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 much longer into a situation, and be valuable to a narcissist because they have a lot more resources to try to fix and heal the abuser. They can see and see and see and see and see all the ways that are wrong and all the ways they can help and all this stuff. So that may happen too. And some people think people may become this way from healing deeper and deeper and having more revelation in their life experiences from the abuse. And I would say you're also looking at a higher energy level, intelligence level, a combination of very good resources over a long time. Plus, they probably were more whole of a person in the first place, whether they had a good family background or whatever happened there. Good spiritual background. They had more wholeness to work with. They weren't like a really fractured borderline, for an example. They were just a lot more wholeness there to work from. And then if you take that and talk about somebody who grows in their life, as you grow and as you learn more of these things and you've given more and you've developed yourself in every aspect, physically, financially, and so forth, you'll find yourself having more and more to give when it comes to relationships, which may be the wrong place to be giving. But imagine being a very empathic, giving person, and caring person, and having so much to give to others, and developing more and more that you can give to others. And this may be how a person becomes even more and more of a super empath over time. So they will notice even the first signs of the devalue and that something is wrong, even when they don't know maybe the specific stages of the narcissistic abuse cycle. They'll know, wait a minute, they get that gut check. They're like, this doesn't work for me, right? It's me. I have goals. I have boundaries. That they're starting, this abusive type person, manipulative type person is starting to challenge or threaten my backup reserves. You know, they have a very strong sense of what they have to offer and what's being used and abused, and where I am and where you are. This is where you stop and where I begin. And I've worked hard for what I have, and you're just somebody, I don't even know who you are, and I know there's a lot of messed up people out there, and you're over here. You know, God bless you. Whether you can help it or not, you don't have a right to this part of me. You don't have a right to take this much from someone who does not have the motives to be taking that much from you. You know, thought processes like that. So whatever it is they're going to notice, this isn't right. This doesn't work for me because I'm not so invested into this person and their story or whatever, their game, that I just automatically assume that they deserve me to give them everything. That's without them even knowing about narcissists. They will have the gut checks and more aware of scams and manipulation in general. They won't play along. They'll wait. Like I say, they'll take a step back and wait and watch. And to a lot of narcissists, that's a boundary. You taking a step back and waiting and watching, you taking a breather, you're not sleeping with them on the first date, that's a boundary, and it's a narcissistic injury. It is a violent narcissistic injury that will be met with narcissistic rage. So there is a good red flag right there. And a lot of times too, when the super empath sees something like that's completely without excuse. Like maybe a codependent will feel like, oh, I'm not there for them, and it's crushing my soul. Whereas a super empath is like, that this is absolutely psychotic. This is absolutely, they have went off into an by choice, and it's a very big turn off. This person is not in the real world, and I owe them nothing, and this is something that I need to be far away from. So more aware of scams and manipulation, will not play along, and it may appear that they're playing along if they're trapped into it to a certain degree, but under the water where the duck little feet are churning and churning, the super empath will be more like working and finding a way to resist and get out. And whenever they do see the narcissistic rage and injury, they don't blame themselves. Like the codependent will jump in and be like, oh, I did everything wrong. You know, the social aspect of the social scene is set up to where I was the young lady that was dressed nicely at the banquet. And so I must have spilt the red wine all over this gentleman's, deliberately or the hot coffee in his face and burned him, or the red wine all over his nice outfit, and now I owe him another outfit and some apologies, and I'm blaming myself and I'm beating myself up. Whereas the the super empath is going to be like, if they'll see through it. Like if you're blowing up and having a rage and an injury because I wouldn't sleep with you on the first date, I don't care how it was set up. I don't care what society expects. I don't care what society you came from expects. I do not have to sleep with you on the first date. What on earth? Who do you think you are? And they'll be more likely to say, yeah, I was right to set a boundary. That's thank you, God. Thank you, God. That's a good protection, and I will be on my little way. Thank you very much. Have a nice life. So, even whenever a super empath is going to be stuck in a situation where they're being under some kind of manipulation, and whenever they see this narcissistic rage and injury and they're trapped there and they can't leave, they're more likely to react to it not by blaming themselves, beating themselves up, getting caught up into it and saying, oh, I need to do something, but they're more likely to go into an intense strategy. That probably means escape strategy, right? And also, they may try to attempt to assist. Once the narcissist has gotten so addicted to their cycles of self-implosion, they do go into these pretty helpless and pathetic stages that are very heart-tugging if you've become emotionally attached to someone. So a super empath may really do try to assist, but they won't really be doing it out of beating themselves up. They're not going to ever get caught up into that trap as much as they're just going to say, how do I help this person who needs to go get on medication, or, this person who is on Skid Row, and obviously, I'm not going to leave them stranded when I need to call a doctor or an ambulance. They'll try to be a human about it and say, I'm going to try to help you if my life isn't in danger, my children's life isn't in danger, just out of humanity. I will try to help you because you've gotten yourself into a terrible predicament. But so there's that aspect also. They're more likely, the super empath is more likely, they're the most likely type of the empath to both dump, discard, and thoroughly expose a narcissist or an abuser. Because of zero tolerance, no contact. They're the kind that even when they don't know what no contact is, they will go complete no contact. Thank you very much. Zero, absolute no contact. Strong boundaries to this sudden violent wickedness that I have been exposed to. But this is exactly why I believe many of the channels and blogs are ran by super empaths that have the capabilities to take leadership and to know a lot and to care as passionately enough to share. And is because they're on exposure mode. No fear in exposure. This can be a fearful thing. You can even have your life in danger. But the super empath is the kind that will be so resourceful and passionate and compassionate that they won't have as much fear of just expose. So many people do not understand this very strong urge to expose evil and alert the masses, because I believe a lot of times you'll find super empaths teaching any area or topic, not just exposure of evil. And I have seen people who are not even claiming any kind of relationship with Jesus Christ in exposure mode like this, and get attacked by evil for it. Strongly attacked by evil. So the good versus evil is happening everywhere with lots of different kinds of people. And this urgency by the super empath to just get out there and expose can be seen by the outsider as being vindictive, prideful, or narcissistic itself, because they don't understand that you're not truly fulfilled until not only are you enlightening yourself, but you're enlightening as many other people as you can reach. It's like a calling. So that can be seen as like either very vindictive, hateful, prideful, or narcissistic to people who don't understand. And so these extreme survival reactions by the super empath to the narcissistic abuse, like, I'm going to do no contact with you, I'm going to set up strong boundaries, I'm going to expose you, I'm going to call you out, I'm not scared of you, and I will dump you on your head and walk away. This will put the super empath at the most risk for violent crimes against them, smear campaigns, and cruel triangulations. And I've had a lot of these things happen with me, right down to violent murder, violent harm, theft, attacks and smear campaigns. And I'm not even, guys, I'm not making this up for sympathy or anything. I'm just telling the truth. I'm putting the information. I'm over it. Praise you. Thank you, Jesus. I've forgiven. I'm completely over it and moved on. My hopes are very strong, very hopeful. So I'm not sitting here and walling any kind of pity parties. Thank you, Jesus. I see the glory of eternal, hope, and I plan to take as many people along that path with me as I can, or show them, how to get there. So this is not a pity ploy. It's just whenever I hear of other people that go through things, I'll take notes for informational purposes. That's why I don't mind sharing it. And I have the very strong testimonies now against spiritual abuse, domestic violence, and attempted murder, and so forth. So every time I'm abused, God will prove himself faithful, and I have developed my senses of discernment to victory. My faith has massively increased, and I have an eternal weight of glory. And I believe all this has just started for me. I need to really develop in this. That may be another reason why I don't grow on my channel as much, because I'm doing a lot of personal growth, spiritual growth too. That I believe we should focus on our spiritual growth in these last days, no matter the opposition. Guys, you can be lied to on so many levels, in your feelings, in your thoughts, in circumstances of just, it seems hopeless, it looks hopeless, it feels hopeless, but it never is. And that's why it's so important to stay in the light of the truth and stay on the right tracks. And don't be dismayed as you see the evil seeming to grow. This is our training ground. This is why I'm doing Spiritual Warfare Advanced Training Academy. This is our training ground before it gets too dark and evil. This is our training ground to remember when those times come, it's not nearly as dark, guys. It's not nearly as dark, hopeless, overwhelming, or evil as we are going to be led to believe. So prepare yourself with that information now. Whenever rights are taken away, whenever abilities are taken away, whenever health, food, comfort, family, etc. is taken away, right now is our training ground. It's very urgent to know that it's okay, and it's not nearly as dark or hopeless or helpless, and you have to give up and follow what you're being told to do that's against God and against his word and instructions. Just to know ahead of time. This is why we're in training now, and it is urgent and important. So just remember, too, that the abusers are blind. They're going to look victorious, right? The big lie and sham of narcissistic abuse, that may be why we've all been put through this narcissistic abuse, especially since, I would say, since 2010-ish is the time frame I've given it on my old channel. There's people that have been going through it for decades and decades, but it's intensified. 2 Peter 3, 2 Timothy 3, end time narcissistic abuse, that's what they were in, that's what time we're in. And so what it always looks like, the triangulation lie, is everything's glorious and wonderful on their side while we're doomed, and it's over. Game over, lights out, party's over, go home, the end. It's all lies. The truth is the people who are abusing are very blind. They have chosen a future and a fate that you would never want to. Like right now, the person who murdered me left me in the ditch, left me for dead, and that was a form of a smear campaign in itself, which is always part of narcissistic abuse. And this person is completely blocked. That's another reason we do no contact, is to defeat that lie. That they're prospering, they're wonderful, everyone's believing them. That's not true. That is not true. And it will keep you fighting. It'll keep you out of the fight. It'll keep you from making your own progress if you watch and focus on that. So just keep in mind that things are very often the very backwards of how they appear. The abusers are blind. They're failing. And I hope to upload some of my old videos to keep the training on that, to keep our mind frame on that correct. Psalm 37 would be one to read to keep your mind straight on that. God is laughing at them. They're gnashing on the children of God with their teeth, and God is laughing at them because God knows that their day is coming. And the gnashing with the teeth happens. I'm sure there's bloodshed that comes with it. They gnashed on Stephen the martyr with their teeth. So just a little reminder there that it often is the very opposite than what it appears. The abusers are blind. They have chosen a horrific fate, guys, that you cannot even imagine. You cannot even put yourself into the shoes of these people for one day. And they have trained themselves to put a smile on their face while they're in those kind of shoes. But a super empath that's filled with light and hope, just that would be the horror of horrors to even have to live like them. So, yeah, let them glory and gloat, and it's not lasting. And like in my case, the guy did such an absolute attempted murder. I think he has like an extra weight with him. I think he has extra demonic presence with him. And I believe that he knows he's in bad trouble. And I believe that our prayers can be very powerful in shutting their evil out of the world at that point. And this is the kind of thinking that will keep you into the battle for the years that it takes to shut their evil down, for the years that it takes to be patient while God does it, and things like that. Is that just the silent knowing, as someone commented on the channel of Narcology Unscripted, that part of our revenge is going to be rebuilding silently and strategically, silently and skillfully. We're going to rebuild with the help of God, and it's going to be, sometimes it's a few years down the road till everything is set back straight. Like I was thinking today about, in the last few days, about one of my very horrible past abuse situations has turned out just fine now. The abuser got so completely shut down, and I got completely promoted and rewarded way more than I thought I would. But I stayed in the fight, though. And I'm sure that God would have probably helped me even if I didn't. But the lies, you just cannot believe. I think that's one of the strong things about the super empath is they don't sit down. They don't take whatever they're told. They have their own strength with God and with the truth. And they grow in that and grow in that. And they have the little thing about charity where it says that true love believes all things and hopes all things, like that. I think that's part of what it's talking about, is that someone who really does have that true light and hope and love of God, they're not going to just believe a bully and an abuser. They're going to look around for the other truth that's going on too. They're going to hold to that a little bit stronger. Some people are better at this than I am, because I do still expect there to be a lot of justice on this side of the eternity, and I will fight for that. But things being set right, evil being cast down, that's probably a weakness that God's working on in me. But that's part of the strength of the super empath, or the person that's not just going to sit back and give up, is that, like, usually whenever you're being heavily oppressed and being tempted to be overwhelmed and in despair, there's big lies happening. That even if you can't even see them, or a tip of the iceberg of what they are, that's going to be one of your indicators that there's some big lies going on. Or you have not been exposed to enough truth to defeat the lies that are in front of your face. So that's where I would say get in the Bible, talk to the Lord, talk to your Creator, block out the abusive lies as much as possible, and dig and dig and dig and search. Crack that code, guys. Crack that code with the straight faith, the sheer pure faith that the truth is there and it's being hidden from you. And God may reward you with that truth to help you, and even so you can share it with others too, So that's some tips I would give on that, as far as the mind games and as far as not being overwhelmed and discouraged. The super empath is believed to have tremendous ability to heal and to help others heal. That may be part of the blessing of how they grow so much, is they came with a very strong desire to help others. And so therefore, hey, if you're giving it away, God's going to give it to you. That may be part of what's happening there. So after each survived abuse, they can find themselves stronger, more empathetic, more creative, more helpful to the world, and more of a target for destruction as they become progressively greater threat to evil forces. So there's another heads up. Now, being an empath, a bleeding heart, and a giver, that doesn't determine if you're okay with God or not. A lot of people are confusing that on these channels these days. Everyone needs salvation through Jesus. That's part of not getting caught up into darkness and being self-deceived. Everyone needs salvation. Everyone needs sanctification. Everyone needs the blood of the Lamb in order to be saved. We cannot be saved on our own credit at all, no matter how wonderful we think we're helping folks or whatever. Everyone needs salvation. No one is worthy. And that's the most important thing. I'm so glad more of the channels are bringing that out. That's the most helpful and exciting thing. The most overcoming thing in overcoming the wickedness that's happening to us is we're coming to these ultimate truths. So just being feeling for people and wanting to give to them, that doesn't make you okay. That's not how you get to heaven. You need Jesus. You need salvation. You need to get completely saved. You need to be submitted, surrendered to God. You need to be understanding the deep truths of the Bible, in agreement with God, repenting of the evil, and committing your life to this process of being with Jesus and what He says and where He says to go and do. And I need to do like this video of people will think that they're accepting Jesus, but they're just like compartmentalizing Jesus into their life. And this can be very dangerous spiritual leaders. They have enough Jesus to have a lot of what looks like good fruit these days, especially. But they can be so selfish at the same time that it's the trickiness there. It's a special kind of double trickiness, and that's why God is like warning about. There's so many warnings in the Bible about this that I just need to do a whole special video on that. But that would be a heads up that I would say there as far as salvation is. That would be like a form of being religious but denying the power, the complete power of that, to do a real transformation. Having, like, we all are not perfect with being completely, absolutely surrendered to the Lord. But when you see someone who's a selfish preacher and a cute preacher, that's kind of like the guy that attacked me latest, that tried to kill me. They're selfish, they're cute, it's too much about them, they're not really surrendered to the Lord, and they're holding up these idols for so hard and long. What this guy ran into was a test from God that, okay, you have idolatry, you're not turning loose of it, that's one thing, but the test, at least with me, and I believe he's done this at least one other time with someone else, the test there was, will you hold on to that idol so tight and refuse to repent so much that, and in the refusal to repent, the Bible talks about the ones that haste after idols heap sorrows into themselves. And that's part of what we all do whenever we are in love with this narcissist as an idol. They're having sorrows, and we are too if we follow them and reward them in it. But this person is heaping the sorrow to God's asking them to repent. I'm not their judge. I just witnessed what happened because they tried to kill me. So they're refusing to repent of their idolatry. That is killing them. That is harming them. That is hurting them tremendously, greatly. And so the one of the final tests was, okay, well, if you're going to be that ridiculous about it, and I believe Satan did some petitioning here to bring it out to, help bring it to this test, is how far will you go in your idolatry? Will you go so far as to say that you have the right to kill this woman because you don't like her and her gifts that she has with God, because you're jealous? When you have your own gifts, but you need to shut up and stop being Haman and let Mordecai be Mordecai. And sure enough, he went that deep. And I think one of the reasons God allowed that test is the guy is older, like he should be well beyond this and matured past this. And God said, it's time to go ahead and call this to a head, call it what it is. That may be his final chance to repent at the end of his life too, is to realize this isn't just some petty idolatry that you think isn't important. This is all the way into murder and sorcery. But that happened, and just some ways where people can have enough of the Lord these days where we don't have old Holy Ghost fire preaching of hellfire in the churches and surrendering ourselves more completely to God. Old style preaching in the church and things like that, to where we understand and we're able to discern and see whenever we see these abusive shepherds. We don't recognize the abusive shepherds quick enough, would be my complaint there, including myself. So that's why I'm trying to share a little bit of what I do know. So just be careful. That's what's going on a lot of times with the narcissistic preachers, is that the church leadership seems to attract abusers for the attention and the power and the praise and the glory. So be careful of someone who has compartmentalized Jesus, and boy, do they. And this would be true of any good, any extreme, ultimate, beautiful, good ideal, which is what the narcissist holds on real tight, and they're black and white splitting. They have that beautiful, beautiful ideal compartmentalized of how beautiful and wonderful it is. So guys, by the time they're done running their mouthpiece, which is their seduction piece to catch you, oh, it's beautiful. It's perfect. I mean, who wouldn't love this person and think that they're real close to God and they're right? But God will give you these other red flags with this person to show you that this person is not healthy enough. They're not sacrificed enough. They're not deep enough with the Lord of what they're really saying. It's not really all the way. There's some really big more red flags there, to where if you get with this person, not only are they going to be an abuser, not only is it not going to be worth it, not only is it going to be horribly abusive behind the scenes, and the more, if you are close to God, the more you pray about this, the more God will show you the red flags. I'm just saying. Thank you, Jesus. He really will. So, not only is it that, guys, but especially like if you become a dependent and you have children, you try to make a home with someone that abusive, what happens there is how I have the whole theory that this narcissist will believe their own gaslighting vortex. That's how it becomes so powerful. They're believing their own mouthpiece about how close they are to Jesus and how beautiful God is and Jesus, and these concepts of all the neat little concepts of godliness. and being with the Lord, they're believing that so hard that they're blind to how bad they're treating you. They're blind to the parts of themselves, because once more, they're not submitted enough to listen to the Lord showing them these things to grow and change and heal them and repent. So while they're stomping on your neck and you're saying it hurts, they're not looking at that. They're looking at the beautiful concepts. And also, God will use the close people around them like you to bring these constant reality checks into their world, that what they're studying and what they're focusing on is not the whole picture. They need to repent. So they're going to be led to a choice of either abuse you and discard you, or take their focus off of how great they thought they were and admit that they're not so great and actually start treating you right. So guess what's going to happen? They're going to abuse you. And I hope this is helping someone, because I've run into this so many times, guys. This is just a common thing that happens in churchianity today. I guess you could say the communal religious narcissist, the preacher narcissist of they're sold, and they're going to have a whole lot of other people sold that they are so beautifully with God. So that in other words, the abuse of you is even that much worse, because you're going to be abused. No one's going to hear you. No one's going to believe you. And now, in the very inner sanctum dynamics of it all, between yourself and your spouse, your significant other, whenever they turn on you and discard you, what they're turning on you and discarding you for is you have come against their beautiful ideal. You have even come against their most beautiful, perfect ideals of Jesus and the Lord. So whenever you're needing to prove your point and prove your case and get the help for your children and be treated properly, what's going to happen there with the psychological dynamic is that now you're not only are you going to have to show them, and overcome all this stuff to show them, please stop doing this, stop hurting me, and I'm just saying, here's the boundary of decency here. You're going to be coming against their mouthpiece of what they've even believed about their own story and their own self, of how into God they are and how wonderful God is, and how can you it's like you're going to have them and 10 other churches coming against you. Maybe not literally, but this is what happens in the dynamic. That's what you're going to have coming against you and saying that you're being reprobate and ungodly and you don't have a leg to stand on. You're coming even, I just hope this makes sense, because this has saved me so many times, that whenever you're having to defend yourself, in other words, for decency and sanctity, that's what you're coming against, is they're believing their own stuff that hard, because it's just propped up by this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful ideal of course they're with Jesus, of course they're with the Lord, of course they're right. I guess what I'm trying to say is their delusion and their lie is even that much more powerful, because now it's backed up by, quote, God. And that's, I guess, religious abuse 101 that a lot of people have seen, but I'm putting it out there because it's a niche that isn't really talked about as much. I've even wondered if I need to write a book about it. I don't know if there's even time for some of the books I feel like need to be written. And hopefully that will help someone. Hopefully I explained it thoroughly enough. If you have questions, leave in the comments, because I love trying to explain things like that. I've ran across it quite a few times, and I've just seen how deep, guys, how deep that abuse pit goes. Because you talk about trying to explain to a narcissist in their gaslighting vortex of how messed up they are, you're really not going to get it across to them, because they think they're with even Jesus all the way. They might have a little bit of Jesus. That's what I'm trying to show. They might have a little bit, enough to get saved even, but it's not enough for that full wisdom and that full surrender and the full charitable, correct treatment of their brother or sister. And that's what you're coming against, is their beautiful, beautiful ideals about their relationship with God. And boy, that can get psychotic. Whoo, that can get very, very nasty. Because, honey, now you have challenged their relationship with God. You're saying that you're not just saying that they're not with Jesus. It's worse than that. You're saying that their beautiful ideas about Jesus are wrong. You're saying that Jesus is wrong, and you're saying the Bible's wrong. Oh, my goodness. And then they're going to have other people believing that you said that Jesus and the Bible are wrong. And I hope that makes sense. But I have seen it enough. That is exactly what that is. So, a lot of the empaths will get caught up in staying with abusers, or at least trying to figure out how to get away from them far enough and do the full no contact and get completely away. And the full no contact being eventually full psychological and emotional and spiritual no contact completely. Because our heart goes out to them and we can't bear to see them in such pain. And so to me, the number one help for that is going to be, there is something you can do. Because a lot of times we're caught up because there's nothing we can do. But we need to do something and we want to do something, and we can't completely let go because we feel like we are, somehow we are deeming them helpless. Like if we at least stay there and monitor them, we might can do something at some point, right? Whereas if we cut them completely off, we are condemning them to utter doom. I mean, that's how it feels for an empath. It may make some people laugh. But so the advice I would give is the best and only help that you can do is prayer. And the no contact is so important. The get out, stay out, and especially in the romantic relationship, our presence and our input is only going to enable them more and more. So even carefully, there may come to a point of no contact that you no longer even pray for them. But while you're connected enough that you feel like you have to do something, or you're just cutting a piece of yourself off, is you can pray for them. And that can be a huge release and relief, and actually very helpful to pray for them. And of course, the Bible says to pray for our enemies, and I believe that's what it's talking about. It's not praying that they get... I believe that never means that when someone is your enemy because they're doing extreme wickedness, that you get on your face and petition to heaven that they're so rewarded that they can continue even stronger in their wickedness and hurt more people. It never means that. It's more like petitioning for these deeper things that we witness, of their pain to be healed so they quit hurting people. You know, the deep healing and answers and righteousness and things being set right so that they can stop hurting themselves and other people. That's the most important thing. So if you're feeling like you cannot leave them in pain, and that often gives us an unresolved trauma bond. And, you know, a lot of people say that you have to fix that trauma bond by completely don't look at them, don't communicate with them, and about a month or so, a few months, 3 months, it will be a lot less, which is true. Any form of severing contact and distancing will do that to degrees. But just for a lot of deep super empaths, that's going to leave us so crippled and wounded and broken for a long time if we can't help this person. That's how empathic we are. And so in that case, where you are agreeing to no contact and getting out and staying away from them, you can absolutely pray for them to be helped. And that way you know you're doing something. You're doing something godly that will receive a reward. You're doing the best thing that can be done. You're doing the most powerful thing that can be done, honestly. When you know how to pray and you're a righteous person that's praying effectually and fervently, you're doing the most powerful thing that can be done for that person. Better than anything else. Better than giving them any information, any resources, and any comfort. That is the best thing you can do, because God can do that better than we can. And it will also give you this relief. And that may be part of why we can't let go, is we're supposed to do something like this, maybe. And even then, that may become unhealthy, guys, as far as a connection that God doesn't want you to have. So do that wisely. So that's just a suggestion I have. It will be the most effective thing that you can possibly do, and it will test your faith. It will be a good strengthening of your faith that God is the most real thing in the entire situation, and prayer is your secret power. The enemy wants you to forget. That's another thing of feeling helpless with anything in life. The enemy wants you to forget that prayer is going to be the most powerful thing you could do, period, physically or otherwise. I mean, there's times where God commands us to literally help someone in need, though. We can't just use that as an excuse. Like, I'm not going to give you a meal, or I'm not going to give you your physical needs or clothes and whatnot because I'm just going to pray for you. That could be an excuse. But in the times where, like this is a perfect example, when you need to be away and you wished you could do more, the prayer is what happens. That's where you step in with prayer. This is also going to be you practicing the most healthy reaction to these abusers. I like what Dr. Romani says about the deep method. A lot of times with these people, it's going to be a mistake to step in and personalize everything that's happening and be involved. It's going to be a mistake to take anything personal. It's going to be a mistake to try to communicate in any way. And the hooks and the lures that they're going to come in is to comfort them. They need to be comforted. You need to defend yourself. You need to excuse yourself of something that you're doing that's so-called, leaving them in pain. Or you need to explain what you're doing. And this is a lot of times where prayer can come in. You can just pray. Instead of personally being involved, you can just pray for God to take care of whatever needs to be taken care of there. And I've seen that work a lot, very, very perfectly, better than I could have done it. And so that's why I remind you guys that that's available, and that's what that's there for. Anything else is going to be toxic, and it's also going to lead us to become addicted to being personally validated. A lot of times all it is we want to be personally validated too. We want the recognition, we want the validation. That's a big part of it, and that can wean us off of doing that too, if that's involved. And anything that requires our personal contact that's going to be very unhealthy and make the dynamic worse. That's the perfect example. That's the perfect, you could say, substitute is just prayer. Not vindictive, not selfish, not attachment prayers, but God, help us, help the situation, help the person. That will alleviate you from this deep wound that you're going to have of not helping them when you feel like you could have or should have. You're perfectly, wonderfully helping them completely through prayer. And it will help you know what effective prayer is. It will help you stay in a place where your prayers are effective. And if you're not able to do this level of contact, wonderful. Don't. You're healthy enough to notice that, and God's leading you, then don't do it. I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm just saying this can be a helpful thing. I've seen this be successful many times, better than any explanation, information that you can give them, a resource or a hug that you could offer them, like in person. Any comfort you can offer them in person. But you really need to know how to be a praying person in the world, and that's like one of the many reasons why. So you can pray for God to bring them comfort, information, encouragement, motivation, healing, resources, and other people. Because a lot of times we're not that right person. Because us being there is going to make things somehow wicked again. It's going to draw you back in physically and romantically and emotionally. So maybe their child can do that for them. Or if it's a man, a fellow brother at church or a fellow brother at work can do something for them that you can't do, because you're not going to be the most healthiest person to do it for them. But someone needs to, and so you can pray for God to send them the healthier option. And only God knows how to do these things the best way, and He can do them very quickly, guys. And only God can judge their heart if they're lying. Because see, if we come to them with help, a lot of times what we get is the lying, the scamming, the cheating, and the lying to themselves and the mind games. And so when God brings somebody else or Himself or His Spirit or a word or information along, they can't argue that like they always do with you necessarily. And if they do, God will know. And that will alleviate you from having to even be involved to try and figure it out or work it out. So that's what I have as far as the super empath and things that may help if you think you're in that category, or if you notice this dynamic happening with people. I thought that was very interesting. New thing that's out there that people are talking about right now. I may have more information on it later. This is kind of like a, believe it or not, brief overview on this. So my anti-narc Bible verses that I would have for you guys today on this topic comes from Romans chapter 8 verse 6 and James chapter 5 verse 16. James has to do with the prayer topic I'm talking about. It's the verse says, "The effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much." That's why you have to have your righteous lifestyle, your right standing before God, and know how to pray effectually and fervently until, God releases you, or you need to know how to be a person of prayer and be in prayer and to see your prayers working like that. It can't just be, there's a lot of people that just live it. Like Revelation says, "Let him who is filthy be filthy still." You can't be living filthy, drunken, and selfish. And then, now I have an emergency, I'm going to pray. And prayer is like a magic wand that works. It's the best way to pray. There is a best way. The other verse to do with these things that comes to mind a lot to me lately, Romans chapter 8 verse 6. "For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace." Because a lot of times in these relationship issues and all of these psych issues, guys, that whenever we can just feel that death. We know the death. That's another thing maybe the super empath really has stronger, is this discernment level. When you're being led into despair, discouragement, despondency, depression, hopelessness, helplessness, like I said, there's usually a big lie going on. And this is going to be like one of your lies that's happening here, is you're being drawn too much, or you're being caught up too much into the carnal things of the world. And this is such a comfort to me, because in other words, you're not on the right path doing the right thing and getting these horrible results of this depression. You're actually, unbeknownst probably, on the wrong path. So now there's hope, because you can realize, hey, I'm being carnally minded about this. This is going to be death. No matter, there's nowhere but for this to be death. If I stay carnally minded, if I get caught up in idolatry of romance, that's carnal. It's going to be death. That's why I'm a Christian. That's why I follow Jesus Christ, is there's much better, very closely attainable to me. Oh, okay, that's what I was doing wrong, and I didn't realize I was being carnally minded. This is death. This leads to death. This is all, no wonder it makes me feel this way. Okay, good. That gives me hope. So the things that are carnally minded on the earth are going to lead to death. The things that don't have hope, that don't really lead anywhere, they're not being done correctly. The things that, the people that are going to lead you into their death spirals that are walking in it, whenever you're dealing in a relationship, in a situation, a person, a thing that just keeps it's just depressing and discouraging, and life situations that are that way, being in the end times and it seems like everything's, a lot of things are discouraging. That's the carnal mindset. That's the carnal realm. That is the carnal structures you're in. And a lot of times if you're in somewhere where you're just being slaughtered and you're just being killed, that's drawing you, especially when you know you are the child of God and you have chosen that and you've given your life for that, guys. And sometimes God will do this even with a lost person to help draw them toward Him. That can be your little indicator there that you're in carnality too much, when you're just getting slaughtered, that it's okay, there is hope. You're really close to the hope, you're really close to the light. You just need to refocus. That is you being pulled into the spiritual. And that would be one of the teachings that I would say that we can be prepared for now in our training to go forward, is if you're being overwhelmed by the depressing and the discouraging, if you ever catch yourself doing that, notice where you are in the carnal and probably don't even know it. This isn't a blame session, this is just teaching, because notice a few things there. Notice what's carnal and what's spiritual. Have hope that you're going to have life and peace. Once you figure out the spiritual aspect of this, there is life and peace that will replace the things you're struggling with. And as the child of God, God will often let you be slaughtered to help you understand, feel slaughtered anyway, to help you understand that you are being pulled into the spiritual, where the hope is at, where the light is at. So something to keep in mind. To be carnally minded is death. To be spiritually minded is life and peace. And so that's just to help us know what to cut off, what to crucify, what to circumcise, and where to refocus, and where to draw deeper with the Lord and ask Him to do miracles where needed, to go into the spiritual correctly and find where there is the life, the peace, the light, the hope. And it doesn't have to be discouraging. And if you find yourself discouraging and depressed, guys, depressing topics, issues, circumstances, that's your hope in that, is there's something different. That's all I'm being shown as a child of God, is that there's something different. I'm just not adjusted properly. So hopefully that was helpful. That's my take on the super empath. I hope you guys found that informative and interesting. If you know some more information about this or resources for us, feel free to leave in the comments. And hope you guys are having a really great day or night wherever you are, and I hope to see you soon on my next video.